Hi,
Hello.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, Asa. Hi, Asia. How are you?
Hi, Michael. Good to see you. I hope there is someone there listening to us. So, hi, everybody. Hope.
Yes. Hi, all that are present, listeners and collectors, community members, parts of the OG Crystal Reef
Yeah.
project, and followers and supporters. Thank you for being here.
So, I'm Asia. I'm a content person in OGCR. I am new here. And Michael, you all know Michael is a co creator of the project. So hopefully, Mike will today tell us a little bit about the process of creation of the physical reef. And if you have any questions, you can post them in the comments on our YouTube channel or in our Twitter. And in the end of the interview, I will read them to Michael, and Michael will answer all of your questions or try to answer all of your questions because there's some secrets and not everything he can answer, but we'll try. So, well, the first time we spoke with you, it was when I made an interview with you even before the OG Crystal project was launched. And then it was like a big experiment for you. You were excited and very unfamiliar with this technology. And I wonder, how do you feel now about it? Do you feel a more confident crypto user and a uh, crypto community person?
Well, I think, I think back to that time as if it were both just yesterday and a lifetime ago, because I think in some ways time is different in the NFT and crypto and blockchain space. And because there are no parameters, which is what's so exciting about it. Things are new and unwritten. And if we're out there making new rules or trying to make and push boundaries that don't even seem to exist quite yet, it seems appropriate that time also has this kind of weird flexibility or impossibility. I know that many of you are up like me. I have a much less of a regular sleeping schedule. I can tell you that
Okay.
in some ways in that delirium there can be inspiration, but also, you know, I think a lot of people have probably noticed in our community that I've been a little more absent from, both the Discord and Twitter kind of conversations, and it is because I've been re-immersed in IRL as we kind of move our project um, in the way that we had kind of promised and intended, which was to kind of begin to straddle both the kind of digital space and this incredible crypto and NFT community space that we were generating and generated around our project that you're all a part of, I think, as participants and supporters and believers. And I think as I move over to IRL, I have a very an interesting perspective, and I realized now that I do feel much more comfortable, especially watching in that short time since last October when we launched OGCR.
You mean having working on a physical thing makes you more confident
I think
with
so. I
the
think it gives me has given me a little bit of a perspective, kind of being in it and out of it, and now kind of beginning to form a new relationship, which I've never had before, which is one that has an IRL um, handle, bumps and scrapes and cuts and bruises on my hands from, exploring coral reefs and building models, combined with a kind of digital perspective and the
yeah
idea that of a different language and a
yeah
different set of tools. And I think that perspective is quite new to me. I will say that I think, to answer your question more directly, I think one of the things that I've noticed that's so exciting is this emergence since last October, as I mentioned, when we first minted and began OGCR as a launch. The number of generative projects and incredible and one of one art projects, um, and small collections, all of these different scales of art projects that have had a kind of an ambition and a sophistication, even a simplicity, but with a different mindset about what the possibilities for art in NFTs could be, has been really encouraging and exciting. So, in many ways, I just feel like there have been a lot of exciting projects and
wow
artists exploring the medium. So I feel like part of of a kind of, I guess, a large
Okay. Do
ecosystem.
you play with cryptocurrencies?
I don't really do a lot of trading. No, I stick with saying no,
No.
but I've tried. I have, worked with some other wallets and tried, some proof of stake networks and things like that. And I'm trying to learn my way around, but with each
Yeah.
project, I feel
Okay.
like I learn more.
Step by step. So, could you please tell us what was exactly made after the crystals were locked, and what are you working on now?
I think what was made after the crystals were locked were obviously the 10,301 um, pieces in the collection that were collectively generated by all of our collectors and community. Um, was a locked PFP, much more of a normal, not a PFP, NFT,
Yeah.
and a kind of more of a typical image. And so I think but that was never the intent. And so I think maybe for a split second, it may have been that the OGCR crystal pieces were, for one shining moment as they transitioned over into the NFT space on market as locked entities, hovered as that static image. But very quickly after, as per Daniil's and the team's great vision and incredible execution, the NFTs quickly became AR assets that were deliverable, and also, as you can see, if on OpenSea, also accessible to everyone as an AR asset for
Right.
each single crystal, which was a really new thing, as well as the 3D model
Yeah.
generated
So you can like turn it
completely.
around. Yeah.
At no moment did it sit still. So in my mind, this dynamic NFT that was generative and growing for 3 months or 7 generations per crystal.
Right.
Once that period stopped, it kept moving. So I think it's still a non-static, moving proposition. With this kind of idea of both movement and also transposability into everything from IRL as an AR asset to perhaps the metaverse, as some of you have really incredibly been exploring, as the 3D models within the metaverse space. And I think that is really exciting. And at the moment,
Hmm.
and before then, I had begun building and experimenting with the 3D models that will eventually be going into our progressing
One.
Final Crystal Reef project and sculpture. And so many of the initial models that have been generating as STL prints in a variety of materials that we've been exploring have
Is
been
there some laboratory where you go to and you build and you see? Could you just a little bit explain the process, like the
shown.
process of creating physical thing out of 10,301 pieces? Like how do you make it possible? You and Daniela, do you use some algorithm? Like what do you do exactly?
And what we've been doing first was to experiment with how much detail and resolution we can get with these large
With
files. And
like one little piece, right?
exactly
Uh-huh.
one little piece is a 3D print printed at, relatively football sized.
Okay.
It's a pretty large print in many ways for an STL print.
How long does it take you to print this big piece?
The piece, it takes a matter of days to a week, depending on the complexity. If it's a 7 generation growth, then perhaps it's much more articulated, much more highly detailed and intricate kind of proposition.
Mhm.
If it's a single generation coral, perhaps coral form, then perhaps that's a slightly faster build. But at the moment, we've been taking the models, and Daniil has been transposing, say, a rendered model, rendered form, into a 3D kind of polygon model. And in these models, then, as 3D printable models, is a little different than the rendered image. So creating the kind of modified file for making a printable model of that's exact and true to the rendered crystal is the first step.
Uh-huh.
The next step is to take that and apply any kinds of corrections and inspect for detail and resolution, and work with the printing house. And we are currently working with 3 US based printing places, one in Europe and one in Asia. And we're right now determining, by getting back single individual models as well as collective models, which one will be most appropriate. And since we
Wow.
print 10,301 of these crystals, which represent every single transaction that's been done within the project, really it's a portrait of all of the users and all of the users as crypto wallet identities and as terms of their transaction detail interface that became part of the project and helped build it. That's what each crystal is, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And to print 10,000 of these is a phenomenal process, and so what we've been doing, and I've been strategizing, is how do we most effectively make the best artistic and sculptural form at the scale that's appropriate and
Yeah.
also structurally sound, that could be doable within our lifetime, and to utilize everything that we put into it, both members as well as us as makers and creators fulfill our vision within this kind of economy that we've created. We've all put into it. Everyone's invested in this. We have a budget to work with the sculpture that we've set aside based upon things. So we're putting constantly back into the project what we have, I guess, made and generated in terms of the financial end. And so building these final one, we have to do both along physical IRL terms, but also, artistic terms and sculptural terms, something that's grand enough to represent the scale, I think, of our ambition, and also, the scale of our group and community.
But do you create this sculpture in computer, right? Do you do it like manually, or there's some algorithm you and Daniela use to make it look the way you want it to look? What is the process there? Because it's not that you are printing how many? No.
10,301.
10,000 pieces and then put them together. You first make a sculpture, right? And then you
Yes.
print it.
Well, that's an interesting thing you mentioned, because right now I've been setting up a studio, several studios, to build the Reef, and in the first instances, it's a mixture of what you mentioned. So we're working both in real life with individual crystal models to get a sense of what,
How
say,
they work together.
exactly what would be the kind of flow. Would three corals look great together? Would a spiky one next to another one? What happens when we turn this model around to have the stone base more upwards? There are really literally so many possible
Is
combinations.
it happening in New York, in your studio in New York?
And that's what I'm doing in New York. So we've set up one design studio in Bushwick, and a studio is forthcoming in Red Hook, and one in Long Island City. So at some point soon, I'll be able to announce to the community, and hopefully we'll have some kind of events in which people could be invited. But I'll definitely have another broadcast from one of those studios once they're set up.
Wow.
So to answer your question, we're putting it together, a mixture of real life experimenting with the models, as well as Daniel has come up with a wonderful way to kind of begin to, well, as you've seen in the Discord and Twitter, probably some of the previs models that we've been kind of working on together, that he's been generating for us as incredible renders of scale and form. So these models, each one of them is 3D printable 3D models, is a very complex file. So in order to even get a test image computationally,
Yeah.
it's an incredible ask of the computer to put so many of them
How
together.
many pieces together? Yeah.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, to kind of simplify it, Daniil has kind of made these envelopes that generalize the form. So we're able to put together crystals very quickly into a matrix, and then to pull back on those envelopes and to have the crystals already in place, but as for more fully rendered forms. So the envelopes generalize the form, so to speak, put them together, and then take the envelope away and replace it with the actual crystal. And that gives us a sense. So yes, once we start to find out the best types of characteristics and qualities, we will probably be using a type of algorithmic process to put them together. We've also been experimenting, I think you might see in the Discord or Twitter, with lattices. So we've been building, the crystals can stick together, right? They can intersect each other.
Like Lego.
Like Lego or like bricks.
Yeah.
in order to have structural solidity, right? But we've also been experimenting with lattices, kind of mechanical looking and formed coral-like lattices or
Uh-huh.
frameworks in which the crystals will sit to give us a little bit better form and structure.
Yeah, in some space. Wow.
Yeah, so there are two kinds of approaches right now, and one of the ones that, as I mentioned, are collective prints that we're coming up with next, and those are the next I can share with you,
Hmm.
probably on our next view or soon within the Discord and Twitter,
Okay.
are images of the collective groupings, which are like tiles. So we're looking right now to build, say, a grouping of 25 to 50 crystals at one time within one single tile. If you
Okay.
think about those numbers, we're looking at hundreds of
Incredible.
tiles that will be put together to make the crystal form in the final reef form.
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone has noticed we launched today a new website, and I will show it to you. I'll try to show it with my screen, or maybe I will if I can. No, why entire screen? Can't I share? No, I can't. Okay, so you can check it by yourself. Share screen. Share. No, he doesn't permit me. I'm so sorry.
Says we should be able to share screen.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm just, pushing the button and doesn't answer me. Eh, sorry, guys. So, you can open the new website by yourselves and see up there a big picture, a big visualization of the reef. It's white and it's huge, and I wonder if that is really how the reef will look like, or if you can like give some explanations on the color, the size, the way it will really look like. Please explain us.
Well, one of the things that you see in the previs, those are very close to the ones that I'm most excited about, and I think Daniil has been most excited about. They may not have the exact shape,
Okay.
the precise form, but we are looking at kind of organic forms and shapes that have these collective masses that we can see. One of the important things I think for all of us in understanding that we all have a place within this reef structure and a moment is to be able to see them all. So that's another trick at that scale for us to try to imagine what is the best form in which all crystals are viewable
Yeah,
by
every one of them.
right. If you or I were to go and try to look for our moment
Yeah, and
in
look
that
for my crystal. Find my
exactly.
crystal.
I think that that's a really important feature as well, in our connecting that we are one large mass and community and collective, but in order to pinpoint our place in it, I think that's much closer to what I feel is characterized,
So
what
what it's like,
it,
2 meters, three
yeah,
meters long, five
no,
meters long?
I think I could safely say it's larger than 3 to 4 meters. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Is it
Yes.
white, like on their website, or you
Well,
don't know yet?
I shouldn't promise anything, but what I like with the materials we're using, there are some neutral kinds of colors, but we have some plans and more technological um, strategies and plans that we're investigating for how to bring color to our experience. And so
Okay.
I should leave it at that. It's a little cryptic, I know, but we're trying to experiment and play with different ways to potentially use both AR, possibly projection, other kinds of means for us to understand color in the place in the project.
So you mean probably it will be white, but using some devices, people would see it colored, or did I
That's what
didn't
we
I
hope.
get
Yeah,
you?
probably a mixture of AR and other kinds of locating technologies, shape, form, facial recognition, those types of kinds of technologies to pinpoint moments.
Wow,
GPS
sounds
technology. We've discussed a lot of things, and we're trying to keep at the edge of what's possible and deploy the
nice,
right, deploy
nice.
the most what gives us the best experience.
Sounds exciting. So I know you are in some negotiations with museums and galleries about showing the reef and the smaller reefs, right? That you are planning to do first. What can you tell about it? I know not everything, but share some information with us.
I think there are two things I could respond to within what you mentioned, Asia. And One of them is that, yes, on the way to making the large scale reef, which will take some time. I'm really grateful for our audience, my co-participants, our collective and our community, for the patience and thoughtfulness in realizing that this is quite an ambitious undertaking. First of all, no one's done it before, and secondly, we are trying to involve um, really large scale reputable art institutions in something they've never done. And so in a way, we're trying to turn a ship like a kayak. We're trying
How
to
large
we're
scales?
trying to ask an oil
How
tanker to do what a kayak can do, and I hope we can. Um, so initially, in unfolding, say, a 10,000 part version, we're going to continue because I really want uh, the community, us, and the world to start to see the sculptural kind of iterations and versions of our project. So initially, what I see in the next uh, 1 month to 5 months is a series of exhibitions in smaller institutions and galleries who I am speaking with around the globe in
around the
several,
globe in
yes,
different
both
countries?
in the States, in Asia, and in Europe, um,
Nice.
and in Central America as well. A number of institutions and private galleries and foundations in which we can show very large scale iterations of, say, hundreds of crystals as opposed to the entire group, and to show these sculptural pieces alongside individual models and presentations to kind of share with the world what the project is doing, that we're moving forward.
What is the timing, more or less?
I'd say, like as I mentioned, between 1 month and 5 months for the
Okay,
first to the
for the first
first.
shows.
Yes.
Hmm.
And secondly, I guess the second part I'm already folding into in many ways, in responding to your question, is that I am in discussion with some of these very large institutions, and at the moment we're in such a delicate stage with one in particular that
Okay.
at the moment has to remain unnamed. I hope that that's okay for our community, but I think there have been some hints at what's going on. But I believe what's most important for us is to maintain a kind of not low profile, but to maintain the energy of the discussion. But I don't think I'm not at liberty to kind of mention the institution
Yeah.
enough to say that the discussions are serious enough and at a sensitive enough stage that we exercise some caution while we wait for this all to come through. I can also say that the discussions with several institutions that are very prominent, from institutions on the East Coast to very important, significant art institutions on the West Coast, I can
Okay.
now say, are at such a stage where adoption of the NFT into the collection will be a big moment for us. That the
Hmm.
actual um, permanent collection of the NFT itself, of an OGCR crystal, um, will be
A big
the
step for the whole community and for the
a
whole
big step for the
NFT
whole.
art culture.
But I also think what's important equally is exhibiting what we've done and doing and moving the ball forward into ways that we can all see and evidence, which is to get crystal sculptures in real life.
Right.
And so, independent of that, I can say that we're planning to get, with these same institutions, some kind of institutional traction to chart exhibitions with them hopefully within the year, and
Within the year,
at more
hopefully
of the large scale institutional level within the year.
you mean
And
you would be able to announce it in a year or to do it in a year?
I think announce it will be much sooner than that.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that execution, or at least kind of moving the ball into a stage where we have kind of more projectable dates, will happen within the year. So I think that getting the exhibition going is important to me, and I know to all of you and to the community. And
Right.
so that that is the goal within the year. But in the meantime, the smaller exhibitions and kind of proof and encounter with an actual sculpture that's been kind of born and created, collectively,
Mhm.
is going to be really important. So
Right. But you cannot yet say how long will those negotiations with big institutions take. it's upon them, right?
Again, again, it is part of, it's in front of boards, and it's
Yeah,
with,
it's a
um
process that.
yeah, I think one of the things that I, like to impress on everyone is that since we're doing something so groundbreaking, I think within our community, we understand a certain kind of dynamic and spirit of innovation, and this
Yeah,
is what everyone involved in the OGCR community is behind. Um, Teaching and conveying some of that dynamic and feeling to some of these larger institutions and bureaucracies is a little bit longer, and sometimes it's even longer than IRL building. As a sculptor, sometimes we can even make faster than we can convince. But once we start to do this, what we're also doing is laying the groundwork for other NFTs. And I
right.
think I'd really like us to, if we can,
Do
maintain
it
some
right.
understanding and patience that we're not only doing this for ourselves and our project, but that really want to set precedent for other artists, other projects, and hopefully begin to change and broaden what's possible for everyone within an NFT and digital art space. I don't think digital art in the first place has got, as probably Daniil can tell you, has got the kind of respect and understanding yet that it deserves and should have the place in the institution and culture as, a bona fide art form.
Right, right. So, the OG project, the whole project is about to change and evolve in something bigger. We didn't yet announce it to the community, but I think we will do it tomorrow, I hope. But a new platform for dynamic NFT art is on its way. And because we're talking to you today, I wanted to
Let's talk
discuss
about
it
it.
with you, yeah,
I
today.
think we should, and I think, I've gotten the blessing of
Yeah,
our
so I
co-collab.
wanted, yeah, how do you feel about these plans? And I don't know, maybe OG Crystals can start a whole new type of art, a new gender of art, or maybe it's the beginning of some new page in art history if we,
Well, I
speak
mean,
bravely.
I love that positive attitude. I do. I mean, I as an artist and a kind of trying to maintain, being a materials person, I'm always humbled at the kind of fighting back of material. So I will say that yes, I respect that vision, and I want that for our community, of course. Um, One of the things that I'm also incredibly excited about and want to talk to everyone about is, it's just the fact that we haven't stopped moving. Nothing's stopped changing. It's very dynamic and organic. And among the things that also have a foothold and a reference to the organic is like the reef, is the idea of this community and this project as a kind of basis for an ecosystem. A coral reef is the crystalline exoskeletons of coral polyps, right? So it's
Right,
like you're building a community on its ancestral past, on its bones, on its own past. And one of the things I think I'm excited about the reef that we are going to announce and launch this summer is the idea of the OGCR, a new platform based on the OGCR and all the kind of innovative technology and other kinds of advances and discoveries that OGCR has made, including its incredibly strong community. And I think that the idea of bringing other artists from crypto and traditional spaces into to do projects, invite them, get to kind of help sponsor, fund, provide technology for, and build an ecosystem of other projects around the OGCR community and project is really exciting. And I think that ecosystem of interconnected projects will be really exploring ideas of creator, not just of co-creation, not just collection. And the idea that to be involved, as we all know, to learn about NFTs, you have to participate. I think everyone knows that. And once you're
right,
in, you are learning by doing. And I think in many ways, why can't that experience of participation and experience and co-creation be a part of the picture? It's much more organic. It's much more in keeping with growth and the idea. So we're one of the other things about the platform is that it is a reflection of that. And OGCR maybe the Genesis
Constant
project.
growing and evolving, and yeah,
Yeah, and
and
OGCR owners
learning.
within this new platform, OGCR participants, collectors, and community members should expect to have significant, privileges and benefits within this new platform.
Right, it's fair. So probably the last question I would like to ask you, and if you guys there have some questions, please write them. Many artists, I think, already feel interested in experimenting with the blockchain and learning about it. But collectors and institutions and galleries, like the art world that surrounds artists, is still very accurate and treating it with caution. And despite the success of many NFT projects, so I wonder, because you are a part of a contemporary art world and and understand it well, what do you think will make the traditional art lovers come to NFT world and believe in it, invest in it? What values, what conditions are needed for this?
Well, I think it takes a number of projects. I mean, I think it takes examples. It takes both examples of artworks that utilize the NFT as a platform, that look at the medium and approach it all from an experiential point of view. And I think it may not be the first projects. I know a lot of artists refer to NFTs as their NFT or your NFT or my NFT as if it's one project. I think
Yeah.
involvement with it on artists' parts, and to understand first what's there, and then to see what its possibilities are as both either a medium, a platform, what its identity, what it means to their work, is essential. And if there is a sincere approach from the artist's point, the thoughtful
The
approach, it
rest will follow.
doesn't have to be as complex or involved as our OGCR project, but which is much more a kind of blueprint of my work, as well as Daniil's work and Snark Art's vision. But perhaps it can be as simple as a singular static image. But if it's approached with thought, I think that those kinds of projects in which the NFT itself has a really clear connection to the artist's work
Mhm.
will be seen as a more valid form. Or if it's digital artists that have not had yet the exposure, then let's create that kind of exposure and platform. Let's begin to make those places for digital and NFT work by doing, for instance, what we're doing. I'm not saying it's just us. I think people are approaching it from a number
Yeah,
of
the
different
whole.
ways. But one thing we talk about so much in this community, in this is value.
Mhm.
I think we all have to expand our idea of value beyond the immediacy of the transaction of finance, of currency. And I know that that's something that might, it might not be the reason everyone is involved with it. But I think if we can expand our version of what value is over time and start to see evidence of how NFT artworks kind of evolve successfully within a time frame,
Mhm.
more of an IRL time frame. Let's watch that NFT project become more relevant. So it's a great time right now for people to be artists to be making innovative NFTs, but also people in our collecting communities to be looking for NFT projects from artists to kind of support and benefit, because this is early stages, I think, of something that'll be much
So
more.
do you mean it takes time and some courage from the artist to keep doing what they're doing, or?
I think it takes the artist to take it seriously as well, and to look at it as something viable, and to kind of be brave and explore it as a new medium.
What kind of values could this art bring?
Well, I think the idea that for instance, photography is
Right,
a great example. Once photography was not seen as a legitimate kind of fine art form
right,
for
right.
so long, and it's kind of not acceptance only, but uptake and kind of place and culture as a fine art medium. We all don't question that now in many
Right.
ways, but there's a moment. And I think in many ways, video art, performance art, all have the same trajectories. And now this type of moment, I think, in a much more expansive way with NFTs and blockchain-based work, I have to say, on a kind of larger, bigger
Mhm.
picture.
Mhm.
Um, it's nearing that moment too, and I think that this is a time for this kind of work to begin to be taken seriously, and because of this, it's a great moment to imagine there is value in these early projects because these are projects that are going to be pioneering, I think, a new place in the art history you're talking about is changing. I'm talking about is we're going to be the first there and pioneering something that's very new. And so I think let's find value in expanding the way we can all think about artwork.
Right, but also what you
That will
said.
become, will
Sorry.
come its own kinds of other kinds of rewards, I think.
Yeah, and also just wanted to ask you to speak a little bit more about it because, as you said, this kind of art came together with the market, and it is still so connected to the money value, to selling, buying, and
Mhm.
is it a problem for this culture in entering the more valuable art world where not money are where not it's not only about money. How do we do it not only about money?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, there are things within the art world that, obviously are related to money and
Right,
related
right,
to
of course, of
transactional.
course, of course.
I think the idea of the motivation behind work as being about generating money are where things differ. And I think if we can kind of keep an idea of what let's call it the transactional, as I mentioned before,
Right.
the idea of exchange, and if there's always a transaction involved in NFTs, but let's start to see and expand those notions of what that transaction can mean beyond the exchange of finances, and that means how do we expand value beyond that initial purchase? It's not just something becoming bigger and more valuable in terms of its kind of relative return in the market, but that will come. I think
Right.
what's interesting is what we see is I think typically in NFT spaces we see and participate, and I participate in this way too, collecting and seeing that collection's value go up and getting to kind of participate in that. And I know there's nothing wrong with that, but I think I'd like within some art projects and maybe in a way for us to look at the transaction happening, but maybe there are some steps in between that happen before it's evidence that the value goes up. So it's not just the value within a whole market where it's all
Hmm.
defined by relative value of monetary value. But what if we can take something that has a certain initial value and then it goes and blows all of our expectations, touches on the real world, starts to influence this, grows into a platform, provides you with all of these other things. Is it possible at the right moment that that then increases in value, that the belief within the community goes up and we can continue to provide evidenceable ways to that project becomes more valuable, and hopefully that again with that might come a more a higher profile or more kind of larger financial value. But again, hopefully by that point we've also kind of not seen that as not being the final point.
Yeah,
That is not the goal on the
the
horizon.
goal.
It's one of many, I think, parts of the roadmap to expect.
Right, right. Michael, thank you so much. Do we have any questions? I will ask Domenico, my colleague, to send me if we have some. No questions. Okay. So thank you so much. Thank
Yeah.
you for coming and explaining, and I hope to to get more news from you as soon as possible about the
Happy to see you. I have
exhibitions.
one thing I wanna share as
Sure.
the biggest teaser to those of you that are still
Okay.
around is, I have begun direct discussion, directly from being in the ocean, literally, to where I foresee us, even though the crystals grew for 3 months in a purely digital space and stopped at the moment that we froze growth, nothing's ever stopped, right? We're continuing the hour, as we said, continuing to make the 3D models and all of the things, incredible things that Danielle has been advancing in keeping this project literally like a living kind of organism, that I have just begun experimenting in collaboration with incredible collective called the Mega Lab out of the University of Hawaii, Hilo, with some of the incredible scientist athletes in that collective, to uh, study the viability of actually of marine life growth and recruitment onto the materials that we're printing with. So I will say, perhaps we will see very soon evidence of real organic growth starting to take over some of the select crystals that we'll pick um, to grow in the ocean and continue to grow or change organically. Now, again, that's somewhat cryptic, but I think you might see some of my direction. But this is another kind of exciting development that I hope to share.
Wow. So we hopefully the OG reef will go under the water and become a base for a real reef growing on it. Did I
We'll start to
understand
see
you?
real evidence of some of these things very soon. So I just know that our horizon is long, and OG Crystal Reef is a living proposition, and is not stopped and will not stop for quite a while. And yeah, and I'll leave it at that. But thanks to everyone for being here. Please look to the Discord and Twitter for more visual examples of what I'm talking about, and I'll try to keep everyone posted on where we are and what we're moving forward with.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye,
Asia.
everyone.
Bye.